Yellow. 1955? No, you can't have your phone back. You know why? This rotary phone from 1955 sounds better than every wireless, cellular, Wi-Fi phone in 2016. So 1955, I'm keeping your phone. Welcome to another episode of Bravo Charlie's. Today it's a beautiful sunny day outside in Pittsburgh. I've been outside doing yard work all day. That's why I'm in my cargo shorts, t-shirt, just kind of casual today. But I want to do a pot roast for you guys. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. We're going to use my pressure cooker. And this is just a cheap, I think I paid 40 or 50 bucks for this thing at Kohl's 4 or 5 years ago. I've had it a long time. I believe this is a 1.5 or 2 gallon stock pot. Perfect for a family of 4. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a pressure cooker. There's no technology involved here. It's just a lid with a rubber seal and a valve on top to let the steam escape in a slow manner to keep most of the pressure in here. This is not a high dollar item. Find one that's reviewed well. Don't spend more than 50 bucks on a nice pressure cooker. Today, we're going to make a tender pot roast that's going to fall apart when it's done in about an hour and a half of cook time, rather than, and this is a 3.5 pound roast, so if you get a smaller roast you maybe only need an hour in here, but an hour and a half this thing is going to fall apart. It's much quicker than in an oven, it's much quicker than a crock pot, and it's the exact same results with the flavors infused in this piece of meat. I'm telling you, this is the way to go when you want to cook a pot roast. So this is a 3.5 pound top round roast, black Angus. And I had my butcher put this twine net around it, so when it falls apart, it will still stay in this twine and be easier to deal with in the pot. So let's go over the ingredients real quick. There's a lot of ingredients here, and I'll put the link below under this video. I'll put a link with everything I have here, okay? So let's start with restaurant style black pepper, kosher salt, Dijon mustard. This is all for coating the roast before it goes in the pressure cooker for the hour and a half cook time. 4 cloves of garlic, cut. Doesn't have to be squashed, it doesn't have to be diced up or anything, just rough chop it. It's going to go in. 1/3 cup of whiskey or red wine, doesn't matter. I decided to go with whiskey today. 2 stalks of celery. This is what's called aromatics. These are going to go in to give this flavor. So we're going to have garlic. We're going to have whiskey. We're going to have celery. 1 whole onion just chopped up in 4 even quarters. 1 tomato quartered. And 2 carrots cleaned. I didn't peel them, just cleaned them and rough chopped them. These are not going to be for eating. This is not going to be the type of pot roast where there's going to be vegetables left to cook in the end. These are going to basically cook down to almost nothing. And in the end, it's going to be very handy to have one of these metal strainers on hand. In the end, after we take the roast out, we are going to strain the vegetables out of the remaining sauce and make a gravy out of it. And I'll quickly go over that with you later as well. So it's good to have one of these on hand. And something else I use when cooking a roast are 2 of these big pitchforks, kitchen pitchforks. A couple tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, olive oil, and bacon grease from Sunday morning breakfast or Saturday morning breakfast. I save the bacon grease. Once it cools down, I put it in one of these Tupperware containers and keep it in the refrigerator. About a tablespoon of this, a couple tablespoons of olive oil are going to go in the bottom of our pressure cooker to brown the roast. a big handful of parsley. It does not need to be cut up. A big handful of fresh rosemary. By all means, if you don't have fresh herbs, you can substitute dry herbs. Maybe 2 tablespoons of parsley and 2 or 3 tablespoons of rosemary if you're using dried. And 1 quart of beef broth. We are also going to need about another quart of water, but we'll see at the end, and you'll see what I mean. Once we put the meat in here, we have to fill it up to a certain portion with water so the steam cooks this meat. And it will brown up just like it's in an oven and look great. So let's get started here real quick. I'm going to turn the oven on. I'm going to go with medium high. We're going to add a tablespoon, a healthy tablespoon of bacon fat. We are going to add 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. And then while that is heating up, we are going to take our roast and we are going to coat it with pepper. We want a good coating of pepper on here. This is why I don't use fresh cracked pepper. It would just take way too much. It's just easier to get a good quality restaurant style pepper and really massage it into the roast. We're going to do the same thing with the salt. Sprinkle it liberally on here, generously. Because this is going to be the only seasoning that goes in the pot, is the salt and pepper that is on this roast. Okay, now that this is done, let's check, yes, that bacon fat is in fact melted. And we're going to take this, and you have to brown all 4 sides of this roast before we put the aromatics in, before we put the broth in, before we put this back in for the 1.5 hour cook time. We have to brown all 4 sides of this. So we're going to set that down in there. You can hear the sizzle. I'm going to let that go for a few minutes, and then I'm going to get the pitchfork, pull it up, turn it around, and put it back in. Okay, so let's check the first side. I'll show you what I mean here, using that pitchfork. Okay, see how we have a nice brown sear? The whole reason for this, let me turn this over. Hang on. Let me grab that other pitchfork. Okay, now we're going to put it on the other side. We're going to brown all 4 sides. About 4 to 5 minutes per side. When you caramelize and brown the outside of the meat, it helps hold the juices in. So if you skip this step, you'll lose some of that juice from the inside. It'll run out easier. So you caramelize each side with a hard sear, about 4 to 5 minutes on medium-high heat, searing each side, and then we'll deglaze the pan with the whiskey. Careful not to get this by the flame. When you pour this in, make sure it's actually down in the bowl. If any of this splashes or gets near the flame, it will catch fire. So be careful with that. So we're going to let this go. I'm going to brown all 4 sides and then come back when it's time to show you what we do with the roast and then put the aromatics in. We have all 4 sides nicely browned, and we're going to lay this. Okay, there's the bottom. It's what it naturally went to. Now, I want to show you something real quick, and I need the towel to show you this. You can see in the bottom of that pan, I hope you can see this, not burning myself, all that dark burnt meat. This is what we're going to deglaze with the whiskey. So I'm going to put the whiskey in. Not going to catch fire as long as you keep it away from the flame, but it is going to steam. So you're going to get a rush of steam coming out of there as soon as that hits. And when that happens, you're going to want to take a wooden spoon and try and scrape up all those bits as soon as that happens. So we are going to take the onion, tomato, carrots, celery. This is the whole flavor of our roast, and the 4 garlic cloves. Get that all in there. We're going to take the parsley and take half of it and put it on the bottom. We're going to take the rosemary and put half of it on the bottom. Let this sit for a second. Wow, does this smell good. Woohoo! I mean, to me, nothing smells better in a house than pot roast cooking. It's just tremendous. So, what we're going to do is take our Dijon, try not to let it explode like that. We're going to take our Dijon mustard and squeeze it. I'm almost out. I thought I had more. This will do. Okay, so we got our Dijon mustard on there, and now we're just going to spread it around. Coat the whole top with that Dijon mustard. Okay, now what we're going to do now is we're going to set this roast mustard side up on top of all the vegetables. Now we're going to take the remaining herbs and layer them on top of the roast. Because we have the other herbs underneath the roast, we have the second half of the herbs on top. Okay folks, I know this is loud, and you can probably hear that sizzling over my voice, but I just want you to see, you can see the roast, you can see the herbs, and everything else is underneath that. When you pour the broth in, you don't want to pour it over the roast because it's going to wash the mustard off. So pour it off to the side, and you can hear the cool broth is already starting to stop the boiling and the sizzling at the bottom of this pan. So we're getting the beef broth in here. Now, I hope you can see this. I think you can. I'm checking the camera as I do this. You can see, let's see, you can see the liquid here. It has to be at least 3/4 of the way up the roast, or too much of it will boil away and you won't have any gravy. So after you add the whiskey, after you add the water, we are going to add, after you add the whiskey and the broth, we are going to bring this up to 3/4, covering the roast. Because we want lots of gravy for the mashed potatoes or the baked potatoes, the Italian bread, the roast itself. We want lots of gravy. So there we go. I'm going to turn up the heat more towards high. Not all the way to high, maybe 1 notch under high, because we want this to start boiling rapidly. But if you could see that, let me get a spoon and show you by moving the water. Hopefully you can see how close it is to the top of the roast. And we don't want to forget the final ingredient. I've never measured this out, folks. I just go by a few shakes, and I cover the top of the roast with the Worcestershire sauce. all natural Leah and Perrin's original Worcestershire sauce. So I'd say I get a good 2 or 3 tablespoons in there. Put one more just for the heck of it. And what we're going to do now is very carefully, because remember this has been, lock that lid down, make sure it's locked in place. The valve should be free, and when this starts to boil and the steam starts to escape, this is going to start to whistle and shake. When it does, we're going to back the stove down to maybe medium and let it go for the hour and a half. This part right here is going to cut into the hour and a half, say about 15 minutes to let it start boiling and let this start going crazy. Then that's when we back it down to medium, let it simmer. With this pressure cooker locked in place, it's going to push all of those ingredients, all of those flavors into that roast. So when you cut into this thing, all that steam and heat and flavor is going to make the roast fall apart, and it's going to be spectacular. Okay, so you can hear and see that thing going crazy. That's the steam coming out. It's bouncing around. So you want to let that start to happen. Okay, so we're ready to finish this off. And what we need to do, you need to cool this down. And I got to move quick here because the family's hungry. So I'm going to fly through getting this ready. We're going to drain the liquid into this pot right here. Get the gravy going with a flour and water slurry that I made. You always want to add, I use 2.5 tablespoons of flour to about a half a cup of water, a little bit less than that. You always want to mix your flour with room temperature water before pouring it into the gravy mixture. That way you don't get any lumps. If you can see, there's no lumps in this, it's perfectly smooth. But when you bring the gravy mixture back to boil, once we get this back on the stove with this in it, that's when it'll thicken up and be ready for your dinner. So, to get this out of the pressure cooker, we need to cool it down. So you cool it down by bathing it in cold water. Ice cold water to get this pot cooled down. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up. Careful when you break the seal because you are going to let out a lot of steam. And it is going to be tight. It's going to be tight because it's designed to hold in all that steam. And now we're going to bring out the roast, set it right here. You can see how nice and moist this is. And to get the gravy started, I have a small pot with a strainer in it. All I'm going to do is strain all of the liquid, and you can see how the parsley, tomatoes, all that stuff just boiled down to nothing. So we're going to set this aside, and then we have, you can see there, we have all of our gravy mixture, nice deep dark color. We'll mix in our slurry of flour. Yep. We turn this to the stove and let it come to a boil. Cut this netting aside so I can start getting this cut up and get plated for the family for dinner tonight. Okay, let's see how this is just falling apart. Look at that. And this was all about an hour and 30 minutes total in the pressure cooker. But look, let me grab my knife back here. Look at how these pieces are just falling off. Normally, if you're not using a pressure cooker, to attain this level of softness, you have to put it in a crock pot and cook it for 6 to 8 hours. But in a pressure cooker, look at this. It just falls apart with only an hour and 30 minutes cook time. And this is ready to serve. What a great roast. I hope you try this recipe. I have the gravy going on the stove. I'm not going to put that in the video because I need to get this going for our family dinner tonight. Try this roast. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment below. If you like this content, please hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to come back weekly and see my unboxing videos, my recipe videos, my product reviews. Check me out each week. We're cooking here at Bravo Charlie's. Thanks for joining me. Come back and see me next week.